Before I start, I'd like to give a quick summary of what 25I-NBOMe is, provided by Psychonaut Wiki. 25I-NBOMe, also known as 2CI-NBOMe, NBOMe 2CI, Symbi-5, Smiles, and one of many drugs referred to as NBOMe, is a novel psychedelic substance of the phenethylamine chemical class that produces an array of visually dominant and stimulating psychedelic effects when administered. The name 25I-NBOMe, which shorthand for 2CI-NBOMe, is a derivative of the phenethylamine psychedelic 2CI. It was first synthesized and documented in 2003 by Ralph Heim at the Free University of Berlin. It was further researched by a team at Purdue University led by David Nichols. It has been studied in its 11C radiolabeled form as a potential ligand for mapping the distribution of 5-HT2A receptors in the brain using positron emission tomography. It is worth noting that compounds of the NBOMe family, any of which could be referred to as NBOMe, especially 25I-NBOMe and 25N-NBOMe, should be administered sublingually by placing and holding it into one's mouth and allowing it to absorb over a period of 15 to 25 minutes. Extremely little is known about the pharmacological properties, metabolism, and toxicity of 25I-NBOMe in humans. It had no history of human use before being sold online as a designer drug in 2010. It has been associated with many deaths and hospitalizations. Anecdotal reports suggest that this substance may be difficult to use safely due to its highly sensitive dose response and unpredictable effects. I wanted to give a quick summary before we started, but before I get into the story, this trip report was submitted to my Reddit. That is where I accept all submissions. Only bad trips though, as that's the only kind of trip I read on this channel. So, if you have a crazy and intense story, please submit it there for a chance to be read on this channel, just like this one. Without further ado, let's get started. I had tripped on LSD at least 50 plus times by this point, my highest dose being 9 tabs. I am also very experienced with a variety of drugs, opiates, stimulants, inhalants, psychedelics, dissociatives, benzodiazepines, and quite frankly, anything I can get my hands on. Now, the LSD I had done the previous trips had all been purchased from the same dealer, and even though I had 1 or 2 intense trips, mentally I could handle it very well and never felt as if I was in any physical danger, and I really enjoyed tripping on acid. However, on this day, my usual dealer had run out of tabs, and I really wanted a trip, so I ended up finding somebody else in the area who was selling them, advertised as 200 micrograms each, a pretty average dose. I ended up buying 2 tabs for 20 pounds, 400 micrograms in total. This was nothing crazy because by this point, I had done over 100 micrograms before, and that went very well. Now when it comes to buying drugs off dealers, I admit I'm very naive and don't even contemplate the fact they may sell me something else to make more money. So with that being said, I took both tabs without looking back. I noticed a slightly strange taste, which I thought was weird since I've never noticed that before, but with me being so desperate to get high, I honestly didn't care. About 30 minutes passed and I was on the train, and I started to feel something. This feeling wasn't a nice feeling at all. In fact, it was an extremely uncomfortable sensation. I felt super dirty in my body, and I had a gut feeling that something was going to go wrong this night. However, I just shrugged it off and made myself believe it would go away when I got home. I was very wrong. I arrived home another 30 minutes later, somehow managing to make it upstairs to my room without my parents noticing my pupils were the size of Jupiter. This was when things really took a turn for the worst. The best way I can describe it is that everything felt really unnatural, and I started to panic. My entire room turned into hell. I started hallucinating Pennywise, and an entire army of clowns surrounded me. Everywhere I would turn, they would be there, and it was terrifying. I did my best to try to calm myself down, but knew this was an impossible task since I thought clowns were trying to murder me. I then got really freaked out when my arms became connected to my legs and felt like my entire soul was being ripped out of my body. Fuck, I thought, I'm actually going to die. I felt insanely overstimulated and my heart was pounding out of my chest faster and harder than ever. My whole body felt very tight too, and I couldn't even think straight. I began to enter a loop of staring at my wall repeating the same sentence, then snapping out of it like 10 to 15 minutes later. By now I wasn't even peaking, and the panic kept increasing. I went downstairs, nearly collapsed halfway down, and entered the living room where my dad was sitting in the chair watching TV. He asked if I wanted to watch something with him. Stupidly, I agreed. I must have been acting weirder than usual because he kept asking me questions and I couldn't form a coherent sentence. My dad then asked the fateful question, "Did you take something?" At first, I denied, but after a brief argument, I gave up and said, "I think I need to go to the hospital. I'm going to die." My heart rate was now higher than it had ever been, and believe me, I was addicted to cocaine and meth and had done lots of stimulants. However, my heart had never felt this bad before. My dad went to go grab my mom, who was trying to sleep at the time, and they were going to drive me to the hospital as they thought it would be quicker. I was holding onto my chest while sitting on the couch in pure agony, while also shaking and observing the most intense, weird hallucinations I've ever witnessed. By now, it had been about 2 hours, and things got out of control now. I managed to get into the car with my dad in the back seat with me, and this is when the delirium just hit me. As my mom drove at what felt like 150 miles per hour, I started talking in 4 different accents at different times. I would switch between an American accent and a very broad Liverpool accent. London and glimpses of myself for seconds coming back to reality. However, that was quickly overridden as my brain was rapidly falling apart. I kept making remarks like, "Fuck this, just let me die," and countless other things that I can't remember very well, as most of what I said on this car journey is a blur. My parents looked genuinely terrified as they had never seen me in a state like this. I had overdosed on Xanax and oxycodone in the past, but I didn't go insane. This must have been terrifying to watch. I kept forgetting I was even going to the hospital, and when I arrived, it just got scarier. I am only 15 and I was when this happened too, so doctors and nurses take these things a lot more serious when you're still a child, and this was my 3rd trip to A&E in 6 months. Everyone there must have thought I was such a junkie, and I began to scream and shout, "Just give me Xanax or inject fentanyl into me so I die quicker, please." I didn't think about anything I said, nor the consequences of what would come after this if I survived. I was put on this bed in a small room, which was terrifying. My heart rate was dangerously high, and so was my blood pressure. I stood up and started screaming. Then I felt like a train crashed into my heart, and I fell to the floor, and I can't remember anything that happened next. I woke up sometime later early in the morning, still somewhat tripping. Anyone who has ever done 25I NBOMe will most likely agree that after 4 to 5 hours, the trip is very flat and annoying. I was told I suffered a cardiac arrest and was lucky to be alive. My blood pressure was now very, very low, and I wasn't allowed to leave until 48 hours or something later. It was hell, and now I was re-enrolled in all the psychiatry services, etc., and my parents were beyond disappointed with me. It was one of the most intense nights of my life, and to anyone wanting to do LSD, please test your tabs and be safe. If I said I didn't do NBOMe ever again, that would be a lie sadly, but I certainly never did more than one of those tabs. If you've made it this far, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Comment down below your craziest drug experience. I'd love to hear it. Also, thank you so much for 40,000 subscribers. I really appreciate it. I really would love to do this full time because my job kind of sucks right now. I work at the post office and they just put out a sign saying that we can't wear hoodies, and it's almost December, plus it's already cold, so they want us to suffer out there. It's fucking inhumane. So please, if you want me to do this full time, please be sure to share this channel around so I don't have to suffer at the fucking post office anymore. Probably won't happen, but hey, it's worth a shot. Alright, I love all you beautiful people, and stay safe out there.